Hi, this is Danielle Paige, and welcome home to the Cosmic Body Podcast, a place where we talk about everything mind, body, soul, and stars so that you can remember your highest potential while navigating your human journey. And when you embody that, you begin to understand that everything is connected and you're more than just a human being. You're truly a cosmic body. Hello, and welcome back to Cosmic Body Podcast, where we talk about all things from aliens to business because it's all connected. And I bet you've never had an intro like that before. So I am so excited to welcome my guest and my friend, Ryan Bartlett, who is the co-founder and CEO of True Classic. And we're going to hear all about his business and everything he did. So first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So I want to let people know a little bit of background because we've known each other a long time and you have helped me so much in my business. So let's go back to, it was probably like 2015, 2016. I don't even know when it was. There's a whole group of us. We used to hang out all the time and you saw me, I was building my business and you were, first of all, always so kind and so generous with your business advice, business help. It's like you were one of my first business coaches, even though you weren't really my business coach, but you always helped me. So here's my official, again, thank you for all that and encouragement along the way. You truly would sit down with me and you're like, let's do this. We should do this. Like, have you thought about this? And I'm always like, wait, when I get there, I'm going through an awakening. You don't understand, right? I would always tell you those things. I'm like, there's a lot going on that I have to go through first. So thank you for that. And so I would love to just hear about your story and how you got started, because I know you were doing something else and I know where you came from, but if you can kind of share with the audience, because where you came from and where you are now, it's huge difference.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say that I remember those days and it was a lot of fun. I think life was very simple back then. This was like pre-kids, pre-marriage, pre-any responsibility. Life is a lot different now. Yeah. But you know, your journey has also been just incredible to watch. And I do remember us really chopping up a lot early in your career when you were trying to figure it out. And to see where you're at now is pretty amazing. Like sitting here on the sidelines, watching you grow and watching everyone follow you. What a magical journey, I just got to say. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Man, as far as where it started, I mean, look, the long and short of it is I grew up in Michigan. Music was my life. I thought that was going to be my career. Turns out you don't have to do it for a living. You can just do it for fun and you don't have to make money. But that took me a good decade to figure out and about $150,000 in student debt. Yeah. So fast forward, moving around a lot. I tried to make it as a musician, couldn't really do it, couldn't make money. Tried to do poker for a living, went broke, moved to Vegas, got into the nightclub industry. And from there, I went back to school because I got burnt out with that. Eventually ended up in LA. And that's where I met, a lot of our friends that we used to hang out with, and worked my way into digital marketing kind of by accident. I got into web development and I had built up skills over the years, graphic design, building websites, things like that. So I was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And I got a job at an SEO company and I saw how much money these sales guys were bringing in, and it really piqued my interest. And I was making, $30,000 a year at this point. So I got really into it and I got obsessed with learning SEO, and I eventually left and started my own agency and built a very nice business for myself. The agency grew to probably 8 people full-time. I don't really run it anymore. I still own it, but top line, probably doing about $1 million a year, nothing too crazy. But I was super happy and it built a really nice life for myself. But I think inevitably what happened when I started building everybody else's businesses is I started noticing that I didn't feel like anyone that was a client of mine was totally doing right by their customers on every side of it. Right. So, I just kept thinking like, why are they missing the boat here? Why are they not doing this? I think they could do a better job in that. And I would try to coach my clients and make them better, but like they have to kind of walk through that door. And so eventually I was like, well, if I think I'm so great and I'm telling everyone what to do, why don't I just put my money where my mouth is and start my own thing? And then I'll have nothing else I can't blame anybody else for that. If it fails, it's on me. And so the True Classic thing came about very organically. I kept thinking like, whatever I get into, it's got to really solve a problem for people, or I don't want to do it, right? Like, I don't want to just create a product for hype and sell the marketing and be good at that. I want the product to live on its own, so that if I can hand it to you and you love it and you feel it and you touch it and you put it on and you notice a difference, that it really is changing something in you and you understand it from that perspective. So I didn't know I wanted to sell t-shirts at the time, but what I kept coming back to every time I'd go in my closet was just like, I would be spending time looking at the stuff I have, and I'm just like, why does nothing really fit me the way I want? And why is it that when I go to Nordstrom's and I look at the premium stuff, it's so astronomically priced? Like, it's like $80 for like a Good Life, or like one of the higher end James Purse. And then I kept just thinking, like, why is it that no one's playing in that middle ground where you can get the premium, but it's like $20 a shirt or like $15 a shirt? So I just kept like noticing this inconsistency. And then one day it just hit me, and I'm like, I should sell shirts. I should just make the perfect shirt where the fit is number one, meaning it is tight in the shoulders and arms and really accentuates the body of a man. But then also, like, I'm not going to gouge the customer. I'm going to cut out the margin. I'm going to take a lot less margin, a lot less profitability, and I'm going to give it back to the customer and essentially say, look, now you can get premiums without paying a premium, right? So that was kind of the thing. And then also just the comfortability factor, which I really wanted. And as I grow older, I wear sweatsuits now. Yeah. Like, I'm a walking sweatsuit every single day. You know, people in this office dress really nice, but I'm just, listen, man, I'm 42. Like, I am not trying to dress up and be uncomfortable at this point in my life. Yeah. So, it was those three things. It was the fit, the comfort, and the price. That's really what I wanted to focus on. And so I went down this journey probably about a year. I would say this started in 2018, where I was like, I told my wife, she's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to sell t-shirts. And she's like, what? I'm like, I know it's not innovative. It's a little bland, but like, I'm going to do it better than everybody is what I kept telling her. Like, I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to be more thoughtful about everything that I do in this business. And you're going to see, and so that was the journey I went down. And it took me about a year to really flush out the idea, to build the IP, build the website, and really get it to where I was ready to launch. But then what happened was, I was still running the agency. So I was like, well, no way I can do this by myself. Right. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about manufacturing either. And I also didn't know anything really about apparel. So it was more just like, I just wanted to do right by the customer in this particular market. And so I just started learning as much as I could about fashion and what it takes to really make something great for people. But what I realized was that it wasn't about optionality and having a million different SKUs. It was about really making one SKU amazing that I wanted to focus on. And that was the takeaway, was like, if I came out being the Gap, no one can pin me to any one thing, right? Because I just had everything everywhere and I'm a big apparel brand. But what I wanted to come out with was the greatest t-shirt that fits you and is priced really well. And that's what I wanted people to hang my hat on. So, so eventually I talked to my buddy, Matt, who knew a guy in apparel, and that was Nick, who turned out to be one of my co-founders. And then Matt was on the kind of startup finance M&A background side. So, the three of us were the perfect trifecta of DNA. We didn't have to hire anybody for a little over a year. The three of us did probably the work of like 15 people each for about a little over a year before we hired anyone. And we probably waited too long, but that was the start of it, and we did 15 million that first year. And then the next year we did 90. And so it's gone from 15 to 90 to 150. And this last year we did like 207. So we've grossed right around 500 million just in the last 4.5 years. And it's been an unbelievable roller coaster. And now we have, 70 full-time employees, probably another 30 contractors, probably 20 agencies that we use. And it's been an absolute rocket ship. I definitely never expected it to really get this big, this fast. But I think it just speaks to the massive over intentionality that we give to the customer and being so customer centric that they can't help but notice and go, wow, this guy has really thought of us. He is not just putting stuff out just to put it out. There's a reason he's doing what he's doing. And when you look around and you look at all these different industries, it's just not super impressive in terms of intentionality. You see just a lot of people putting out product just to put out product.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's what people really look back at, and they're just like, these guys are doing right by the charities that they're involved with. They're very, very philanthropic. And listen, the advertising we do a lot of comedy. So we're intentional in that aspect as well. Like, we're out to really just make people feel good and ultimately look good. And that is kind of the crux of True Classic.
My gosh, I have so many questions. Thank you for that. How were you able to keep the margins down where you think other people weren't able to do that?
Well, I just think that most people are overcharging in general. So
Okay.
I think they're just making too much margin.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, you have to be a really tough negotiator. We're known in the industry as being one of the more ruthless negotiators, because when you have a lot of leverage in the industry, everyone wants to work with you. That's the good part, right?
Right.
When you have leverage, you have negotiating. What's that?
You didn't start that way, right? So
no, we did not start that way. We had to build that over time. And in the beginning, though, I would say, we were overpaying. We were overpaying, and we didn't have great terms. Like, we didn't have good payment terms with our vendors. But over time, what these guys saw was like, well, these guys it looks like they're going to the moon. So like, I need to negotiate, basically, or they're just going to go to the next guy, and then the next guy is going to get all the business in the future. So that's what's been great about our partners, is they had the foresight to really say, I think these guys are really onto something, and I'm going to just keep lowering the cogs for them, because we want the future business, right? So that's really how you do it. You just got to constantly keep your vendors competitive, and inevitably there is a kind of like a line where it just stops, and now one can kind of, make less than that as a manufacturer. So listen, you want everyone to make money at the end of the day, and you don't want to grind them down to nothing. Right. You want it to be mutually beneficial. Right.
Interesting. So I like what you said is you found there was a problem, right? You from your personal experience, you saw a problem, you didn't like the way it fit. And so you created a solution, but you also kept it your business is simple, but it's not simple at the same time, right? It's very big, but it started with, let's keep it simple. Could you speak on that? Because I think that's really important for people starting their businesses, that we overcomplicate it. And oftentimes, like, I've done that too, because I'm getting these words and these downloads, and I'm like, oh, people don't understand what that means, and really have learned to simplify it over the years. So if you could talk about anything about that.
The simplification journey never ends. It's even something today that we're doing and looking at, and how do we make the website more simple? How do we make it faster and easier for people? It's easy to get lost in the chaos and kind of like always want to give more by adding more.
Yes.
But you have to consolidate in the process. And consolidation comes from a lot of thoughtfulness. So like, for instance, like the mega menu on our website, the menu, right? Like, we're figuring out a way to consolidate and make it easier, because we have so many SKUs now, to your point, that there just has to be a better way to like focus the energy and the attention for the user and make a simpler experience. But I'll tell you where the simplification came from in the early days. I got into drop shipping, which I would think for anyone that wants to get into business, drop shipping is one of the best ways to start, because you can essentially get a website for not a lot of money. And these days you can build them with AI for nothing easily. Yes. And then you just throw up a bunch of products that you think people want. You advertise a little bit. And then when the order comes through, the supplier ships directly to the customer. And so you're not holding any inventory, which is amazing, right? And it allows literally a 12-year-old to get on and build a drop shipping site and start making money overnight.
Yes.
And what I realized by doing that was that the winning products that I would win on for drop shipping, I would essentially start getting rid of everything, and I would just keep consolidating until it got to the point where this product was such a winner that I would build a whole website for that one product. And I wouldn't even make any other options, right? Because I would want them to land on the website from the ad and have the highest chance of conversion. And the way you do that is by just focused energy. And that's why people do landing pages, for example, because you don't want them to see anything else. You just want their attention to go to the one thing with the one add to cart button, not 12 options where you have to force and make them think about things. Just one simplistic option to save you time and energy. Here's what the whole website is about. Boom, done. Like I even have this crazy vision of if I ever start a product again, I'm not even going to have more than one page on the whole website. Like that's how simplistic I want to go. I literally just want one add to cart button, one homepage, nothing else. Everything else just lives at the bottom of the website. So like, that's really where it came from, was like, I knew that if I came out too hot, too quick with too many options, it was going to be too scattered and it wasn't going to do well. But by narrowing in just one crew neck t-shirt with 6 colors, it was definitely the right way to start. And I look back and I'm glad that I had that vision the way I did, because I think it helped us get a lot more momentum a lot quickly, because people could hang their hat on that and go, oh, that's the company with that sells the good t-shirt. Right. So
I love that. And that's so important again for people to understand, because when you do have a lot of offerings, I won't usually like I've had 3 at the most of different price points, but usually it's 2. So it's either this one or this one, because you have to make it simple. It's complicated. That reminds me, I just, I'm looking at rugs for my place, and there's this really nice rug store here in West Hollywood. And a couple designers told me to look at it. So I went on their website, and their website is so high tech that it actually doesn't work. It's slow, like the Flash player or something. It's so beautiful and fancy that I actually just close it off every time because I can't actually get it to work.
Yeah.
So, it's designed nice, like the aesthetic is beautiful, but it's too complex that it's not running, like either on my phone or something else. And so you lose the customer.
Absolutely. That happens on everybody's website, by the way. Even when like you look at people's Instagram bio links, you know how everyone does like the link tree thing?
Yeah, I know. I have too many.
Dude, everyone does. It's not you. Exactly. It's not just you. It's literally everyone does the same thing. And what they don't realize is the person that's reading it has so much to choose from that they end up choosing nothing.
Yes.
Right? Because they just get lost.
Yep.
So like what I would tell people that have that is literally go back to the drawing board and think of an external human using it, not yourself, because you want to make sure you don't lose anything in there. Right? That's the way we think about it, is like, oh, but I got to have everything because they need options. But actually, what I would just focus on are like probably the top 3 things you want to send people down the rabbit hole on, and then let them come back and figure out how to navigate through the other content whenever they want. Right? But like having 600 options, probably not the best user experience.
1,000%. I'm definitely guilty of that. I actually just said to my team, I'm like, one, we need to make this smaller. There are a couple of things we did, make it smaller and simplify it, because it's too much, right? Because there's so many things. So again, I'm emphasizing that because I know people are listening to this, are starting a business or wanting to scale their business. And I have learned that over and over and over again, like, especially in my world, in this like healing world, we try to use fancy words, but if they don't understand like what they're going to get from it and how they're going to change, forget about it.
Yeah. Less is more.
Yes.
That's really what it comes down to. Think about the people reading it and clicking it and make their life easier.
Yes.
Like we don't have to overcomplicate it, right? It's just like always be thinking, how do I make their life easier with less choices? This is like the UX UI journey of everything that most companies do, is just this battle of showing too much because you want optionality, but actually going the reverse, because what the data shows you is that, like, for instance, our collection pages used to have hundreds and hundreds of products, right? And you would think intuitively, well, if I add another 100 products, I'll make more money. It's actually the opposite. We've tested this. So out of the hundreds of products we had on a collection page, if we removed 200 out of the 300 and only left 100, we made more money. And then we removed another 50 and we made even more money. And so what we saw was like, oh, people are just getting overwhelmed.
Yes.
And that's what's stopping them from buying. Yep. So like we need to go back to like maybe only having like 10 products on that page. Forget 300. We're thinking about even cutting it even more. And now we're down to, I think, like 48, which is, it's never been that low. But also what you see in the heat map data, do you know what heat map is? It's like it's basically like an overlay of the website where you get to see where users click and how far they scroll, and it gives you real-time data. What you see is that most people don't even navigate past like the first 4 rows of products. Right. So it's like, what's the point? You're just basically leaving a bunch of info up there to confuse them and slow down their journey. So
I love that you said that, and it's true. Again, I've been having these conversations with my team of I tell them, you guys are in it, you know what's going on, but put yourself in their shoes. They've never seen this before. They don't understand this, right? You're looking at it from your eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
being an interior designer and, my past life here, I have to navigate the wayfinding, right? How do people get through the space? What do they do when they walk in the door, right? So you have to get in the psychology of people. And we're all so busy. I mean, with everything going on, it's information overload, really, right now.
Absolutely. And that
So,
objectivity that you were talking about is what I'm learning, such an insanely important skill to building a business. I think the people who have the hardest time are not able to remove themselves
mhm.
from, it's like, have you ever gone to a restaurant and the food's bad and you're like, dude, this is what you do for a living and you didn't know the food was bad? Like, who is talking? Like, why do you think your food is good? It's such a weird disconnect, right? It's no
Right.
different in e-commerce. People build something for themselves and they think it's good, but they don't
Yes.
even bother to think about who humans on the other end that they're selling to. It's
Yes.
so simple, but it's amazing how detached and non-objective people are about the product that they're producing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, people hit me and they're like, why isn't this working? And I look at their ads and their ads are brutal. And I'm like, what's going on with your content? And they're like, what do you mean? And they don't even know. Like, they think it's great. They really are that disconnected. And that objectivity is the difference between having a small business and a massive business. The more objective you can be, the more you can put the customer ahead of everything, the more successful you'll be. There's just no way around it. You give people what they want, and you're in business. You give the business what you want, and it's going to be a small company.
Right there. That was a mic drop. That was so beautiful. And also to not take it personally, because I've seen this. With my last round of Sovereign CEO that I taught, a lot of people were taking it personally. And I told them, without trying to be harsh, you can't take it personally. It just means that your messaging needs to change. You can just tweak a couple things and it's a whole different ballgame. But if you start internalizing it, right, you're making it about you, and like that's the personal problem. So that's what you have to
Mm-hmm.
work on, your emotions on that, but you have to take yourself out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even just take it one step further, I would say that, like, the people that we have to let go here at True Classic always have a lack of objectivity and awareness.
Ooh,
It's the most consistent common thread that I see. And it goes from top to bottom. I'm talking like executives, everyone in the company
right.
that we've had to let go over the years, no matter what position they're in. They all have this one thing in common, and it is this lack of awareness of the world around them, because they
Mm,
don't understand how they are coming off to the world. They might be really talented, they might be really smart, but if they cannot work with a team and that team does not like them because of how they're moving and shaking in the world, it doesn't work here,
yeah.
right? You have to listen to your people. But that objectivity comes into play a lot in the business world. And again, it's when I look at the people we have to let go, it's always that one thing is always glaring me right in the face.
Wow.
And then you fire them and they're shocked, right? Like, because it goes back to lack of awareness. Like, they didn't see it coming because they're so in their head about what they want and their ego that they're not thinking about the world around them and how things are moving and shaking and how people are feeling towards them. So it plays into everything in life.
Wow. That's huge. That was like a life lesson. That was a business lesson. That's everything.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't know that either. Like, I've learned this over the years about
Yeah.
people. Like, I've had ideas, but like seeing it in
Yeah.
real time, it all goes back to that.
Yeah. It's psychology. I mean, we're a very interesting species, right? And you can see it with everything that's going on in the world. And we wouldn't be doing the things we're doing if we didn't need to learn and evolve and grow and move through these lessons. So that's where I come in and hopefully help along the way, because yeah, it's very deep rooted in our awareness and our emotions
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So I love that. Also love something that you said earlier is you didn't have any experience. I don't know whether it was like in the clothing industry, but you learned. Now, that might sound like just a simple statement, but I think that is huge because one of the things, Marie Forleo, are you familiar with her?
Mm-mm.
She does B School. She's been around forever. She's an amazing entrepreneur, and she says everything is figure outable, right? She's made this word up, right? If it's even a word, and it's true. And I say that being a CEO running your business, you have to figure things out as you go. Every day there's something new that I don't know how to do, but I know that I can figure it out. Either I figure it out, I read it, I ask someone, you just find a way. And I think that's a very important skill set or trait that you have that you learn. So if you can speak on just the things you've learned along the way that you didn't know, or just anything you want to say about that.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's business is problem solving.
Yeah.
That's what it is. At the core of what great entrepreneurs are and the ones that build big businesses, they are just better problem solvers than the other guys who have small businesses, right? Like they just move at a different pace in problem solving. Now, if it takes you a long time to solve a problem, your business is not going to grow at a strong pace. If you have a fast, high risk tolerance to solve things quickly and move without overthinking and analysis paralysis, you're going to build something really quickly. And that's what happened here, for better or worse. And listen, I am not perfect. I have made every mistake in the world with this business. And I've learned the hard way, but I don't beat myself up for it. And I don't care. I just keep going. And I say, you know what? We learned our lesson the hard way on that one. Let's move forward and be better the next time. And let's just keep moving and going and moving and going and just keep that process super cyclical and stop looking behind us. It's about what's ahead of us, and just keep your nose to the grindstone. And that's really what it comes back to. When I look at the guys that I'm friends with that are huge D2C operators, they all have a lot of things in common. And I would say the number one thing is this ability to learn and never stop learning. It's not like, oh, I got to this spot, I'm good now, I'm done learning, right? It's like, oh no, there's much more problems at the top, by the way, than there is when you're starting. Those are the easy problems to tackle. But now I'm dealing with the worst of the worst problems in the company are distilled down to me every day. That's my life. Like I put myself in a position where I just have to solve the stuff no one else wants to do. And it's always the hardest stuff. It's finance. It's like things that I just are out of my comfort zone that I have had to learn. It's really how to understand a P&L and understand forecasting, demand planning, all these things that I've had to learn on the go, which could have sank the business in the early days, but we figured it out and we kept moving. So problem solving, and also just, I think an underrated quality is just this infinite curiosity that I see in people that continue to find a way out of no way, where it seems like, this is a roadblock, and then they just keep going and they just keep going and they hit another roadblock and then another one, and then they break through. But had you not had that curiosity to keep going, you would have been stopped at the first two roadblocks and you never would have evolved past that. So like this idea that like, I've learned enough, there's nothing else out there, is just not true. Everything we do, we challenge, right? Like we say, oh, we have this piece of software. Great, it solved an issue. But is there another better one that has AI integrated into it that makes the job even more efficient? The answer is yes. You just haven't spent the time to find it yet and execute on it. So like being curious about what's next and what's out there is such a massively underrated skill that you just can't really teach. It's like something that we see in people that come here and they just kind of jump into the business and they start being curious and they start figuring things out. And you're just like, oh, this guy's going to do well here. I can just see the DNA shining through that they have the scrappiness and the right attitude and the curiosity to figure anything out. And even if they're starting on the bottom rung, they're going to be an executive someday, because that's the DNA that it takes to move the needle. And that's what we value here. We have, core pillars of value that we really live and die by here. But I would say that curiosity factor just allows you to evolve as a human. And through that evolution, it improves the business, it improves the job that you're doing. And eventually everyone notices and they just continue to elevate you and you move up in the company. Even if you're an intern, if you find ways to innovate and you find ways, people are going to notice that, even if it doesn't seem like it on the surface, eventually it's going to really take you somewhere. So I would just tell people, just never stop looking and moving and shaking and being curious on whatever it is that you're doing, because at the end of the day, you'll look back a year from now and you'll see how far that curious took you. It's not always so obvious in the moment, but we do things here. Like I have a channel in Slack just called ideas, just
Yep, we
hashtag
have that too.
ideas, right?
Yeah.
And everyone just pours in random stuff. And it's like a lot of it we don't use, but some of it is gold. So you got to empower the people to really just flush ideas out and be curious about new things that are happening in the world that can help improve our lives internally as a culture, but also just the customers' lives, whatever it may be. The curiosity, it's a big one that we don't really, I don't see enough businesses really highlighting that as an attribute that needs to be focused on. But I see it in play, and it makes a big difference.
Oh, that was so good. There's so many nuggets there. Just today, I asked my team to do something, and they've never done it before, and they were a little bit scared. And I actually, in so many words, I said straight up, there's going to be things that I'm going to have you do that you haven't done before. And I said, I would like you to approach it with confidence because I need that support. So I just said that this morning to my team. And I
That's
said,
awesome.
because you're going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I know you haven't done it before. It's okay. I haven't either, but I want you to approach it with confidence because that's the kind of energy that can move it forward. Right. And that's a whole shift in frequency. So I love that you said that. And I love that you actually use the word move the needle. You're a successful CEO and use the words move the needle because I said that all through my Sovereign CEO class in the summer. And I said, let's just move the needle because we can't stay stuck in that paralysis, right? We can't stay stuck in that indecision. We can't stay stuck of like internalizing it that something didn't work. Let's keep moving the needle because we have to go forward. So it's a mindset over everything. And the reality is anyone could have it. It's learned, right? You learn on the job. Like I didn't get into this to be a CEO. I was like, I'm here to help people. I'm here to, do readings. And then all of a sudden, I've kind of morphed into that. So it can be learned, but you have it or you don't. Like, or you bring it out or you don't. And that's a decision that you need to make.
The impact thing that you said though is one of the things that we drive home every single day. I have an emoji on next to my name on Slack, and it is a needle that goes like this. It animates, and it's just a needle. And when the reason I did that is because I want everyone to know that I am constantly in this company moving the needle. And so that's the value you bring to this company too, right? Like busy work is not great here. Like we don't like celebrate busy work. Now I know we have to do a lot of it. You just have to sometimes. But what we value is people that find a way to move the needle, even if it's a small impact, it's still impact. So when everyone's moving the needle and making an impact, imagine what the business can do, which is why we just constantly try to help people. And like, for instance, it's not always easy either. Like I might talk to someone in finance and or operations, and they would say, well, how do I move the needle? I'm just like doing operations. This, I can see in marketing how you move the needle because you make a great piece of creative and you spend a bunch of money on it and it does great. That's moving the needle. But like I'm sitting here in logistics, what do I do? And so what I tell our employees is like, if you don't know how to move the needle, come to me and Ben's our president, come to us. We will figure out how to move the needle for you. We will teach you what moving the needle is in your respective department. That way you don't have to wonder. And you're not sitting there like, this isn't fair. These guys all have it obviously easy to move the needle, but I'm over here trying to figure it out. No, you don't have to. Just come ask us and we will help you figure out what moving the needle looks like in your department. If it's logistics, figure out how to lower the shipping times. If it's ops, figure out how to manage our inventory better and save us money. If it's fulfillment, figure out how to get the cost down, right? Like there's all sorts of ways to move the needle and make impact, but it's not always so obvious to everybody. So we try to just, really help figure it out. But it's the whole thing. Because if you're not making an impact and you're just doing busy work, you're not headed up and to the right. You're just kind of moving very laterally. And that's kind of the difference.
And you're not, like I like to say, locked and loaded because it's purpose work. It's alignment with your heart. Because when you're curious and you're inspired and you're building something bigger than yourself, and like that is exciting for humanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, I have a couple more questions here. You talked about mistakes. I made lots of mistakes. I even made what I thought was a big financial mistake, and I ended up turning it and twisting it, and it ended up being okay. But even in that mistake, I realized people that make a lot of money, they sometimes lose a lot of money, and then you learn, and then you're going to make it back. So that was a whole lesson for me. I ended up being totally fine, but there was a lot of life lessons in that. So what's one big mistake that you have learned? And I don't even think of the word as mistake, because we can get philosophical here, but mistake that you learned to tell other people that you wouldn't do it that way again.
I mean, the mistake list is long. I'll say that. Very long. And it keeps growing by the day, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you got to learn from it, right? Like, that's what it all goes back to. It's like, you just can't do it again. You can make a big mistake. We've made a lot of big mistakes here. I would say, in terms of like the most costly mistake, I mean, demand planning has costed us millions in terms of mistakes, maybe tens of millions, because it is very difficult, is what the punchline is. Essentially, it's a very complex business. It's hard to forecast. It's hard to know what we're going to do next year. Everyone has high hopes and dreams for this company. Hey, we're going to do 400 million next year. Let's buy into it. And buying into it means it's a 9-month lead time. So, you don't know what's going to happen in 9 months, right? So it's very difficult to listen. If the business was predictable and we knew we were going to do 300 million next year, then I would be able to order perfectly. But guess what? With a growing company that grows this fast, you never know what it's going to be. So you have to hedge, and you have to basically be a little bit more conservative on the buys, on the POs, the purchase orders. So in the early days, listen, I have an insanely high risk tolerance. I'm a big time gambler. I always have been. I grew up with it. Like Matt, my co-founder, is also a big time gambler. And we took bets. We took like a $40 million bet, probably in year 2.5. And we were wrong. We probably should have bet 20 million, but we doubled. And we thought, here's how we thought of it at the time. It was kind of like we had no one to do demand planning, number one, which is our first mistake. And the second mistake was we just kind of we were looking at each other like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Like talking to all the executives, and everyone's kind of on board with it with no rhyme or reason and no data to back it up. Right now we have predictive analysis and all these things that AI can do that help us predict what the future is going to look like. But at the time we thought okay, even if we do overbet, what's going to happen? Let's flush that out. So what we came back to was even if we overbet and it doesn't work out, we had enough confidence in ourselves and our negotiating ability that if it went bad, we were going to just go back to our manufacturers and make some bad deals, right? Basically, we need you to hold some stock. I know you don't want to, but we'll pay you interest on it. And we'll suffer basically in the short term because we're going to pay interest, and the interest will be tough to eat. It's a lot of money, when you talk about scale. So we basically said, listen, they're not going to put us out of business, but if we bet too big, they could. So we'll just bet somewhere in the middle, even though 40 was insane looking back. And so that was a huge mistake. But again, we trusted our instincts that we could get out of it no matter what. We weren't okay, we overbet, time to shut down the business, it's over. We were okay, time to go to work. And we hit those phones and we made those calls, and it's rough, right? Those manufacturers are you guys got to be kidding. We bet on you. You let this happen. What now, basically? And we had to have some brutal conversations, and it was very uncomfortable to tell people, I can't pay you. It's the worst feeling in the world. But it's I don't have the money because it's not coming in fast enough. We will pay you. And not only that, we'll pay you with interest, but you're going to have to wait a little bit. And now I know that's not great for you, but here's the thing. You work with us, we're going to give you all the business in the future, right? And so that's what keeps them on. And they see that, and they're okay, we'll work with you. And that's what happened. And that's how we got out of it. But that was a big one. That could have sank the company. And that's how a lot of companies sink, by the way. You look at some of these big public companies that overbuy, and they're getting shredded in the markets. Peloton. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that have suffered from overbuying. It's always kind of the biggest issue, I think, with most e-com is the overbuying part.
But I like what you said. Now let's get to work, because you almost had to adjust. You had to fix it. You
didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's either that or shut the business down. So it's What other choice
But
do we have?
look where you are now with that. So, and it keeps
Worked.
growing
And
and
it's still
growing.
not perfect, by the way. Like even
Of
after
course
all
not.
that, and I know I just said like you got to learn from your mistakes. We still haven't learned that one. That one is so difficult. I know on the service people are probably like, oh, just get a piece of software and it'll solve everything. No, you just don't understand how we have so many people here and it's still so complicated. So it's a work in progress, honestly.
I mean, we're basically forecasting people's buying potential and the economy. I mean, there's so many factors to it. And I
Exactly.
see it with courses. It changes. Like I could have one launch, the next launch is totally different. Better, worse, it's just completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's on a very smaller scale, but you don't know.
Yep.
But you trust yourself enough to figure it out. And that's what it continually comes back to.
100%. I would say another mistake that I still make to this day is being a little too rough around the edges in the way that I communicate with in meetings and things like that. Like I'm not a buttoned up corporate guy, right? Like Ben is really good at that. He's really good politician, says all the right things, says it all the right way.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, this is broken. What the fuck? You know, like I'm the guy just like saying it how it is and being really overly truthful. Listen,
Yeah.
people now know me and they don't take it so personal because they just know who I am.
Yeah.
But like for people that come into the organization and they start seeing me on meetings and just like stopping the meeting and going completely the other direction and just really going outside the box, it can be disruptive. And all of a sudden, the HR department will start lighting up with complaints about me that like, well, Ryan said, like for instance, people were complaining last time I made a reference because people were talking about how do we make an impact. And I gave them an example of someone that was making an impact. And I just so happened in the conversation to say something like, and we were up till midnight and we were working on this. And all they took from the whole thing was that now we have to work till midnight to make an impact.
Right.
So
Yes.
like the complaints just start flooding in. And then I'm just like, guys, like it's not about that one little nuanced thing that I said. It's about the broader picture. We're here to make an impact and this is how. I'm not saying everyone needs to work till midnight. Right. But like that, my mouth gets me in trouble a lot of times because I'm just trying to speak from the heart and I'm just trying to be honest with people. But in the business world, turns out that doesn't work out so well for most people. It worked out really good when we were like 15 people. But now there's so many eyeballs on us.
Yes.
And I hate it because they look at me so different now than they used to. They used to look at me like I was one of them. You know, they used to just look at me like I'm just another coworker here to help. And now they like put me on this thing way up here and I hate it because I'm not that guy and I don't want to be that guy and I don't want to be removed or in an ivory tower away from everybody. I want them to think of me like I'm one of them because I am one of them. Mm-hmm. So like I have to do a lot of one-on-ones with people because they pull back once you get in these positions and they think they can't talk to you and and then that turns into other problems, right? You start interacting with them and then everything I say gets twisted, it gets turned, it gets put into a different box. And so I'm making a lot of mistakes on that front, but it's hard not to be myself. It's like, what do I do?
How to be authentic and speak from your heart.
Well, listen, that's my argument when I talk to HR. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Not be a human? Like, I don't get what you guys want me to do. I'm not Mr. Corporate buttoned up, perfect politician guy, CEO. I'm just not him.
Yeah.
So
you sound like Gary V, like, like the way he talks and stuff. Yeah.
And I'm sure he gets the same stuff, right? Like, I'm sure we're both kind of cut from that, but it's like, we just are who we are and we're not apologetic about it. And I'm definitely not going to change. Now, if I'm hurting people's feelings, that's one thing. Like that I have gotten much better at about saying things in channels that it could be taken a different way. That I'm very mindful and I've gotten much better at over the years. Like when there was a problem, like with an email, for example, like you would get the email and the button click wouldn't work or whatever. I would jump into the channel and I would be like, guys, what's going on? The thing is broken. And I would just start like going off about it. And then everyone would start being like, well, why is he saying it in the channel? It makes me look bad. And I'm like, makes you look bad? I'm just trying to like fix the email, guys. Like, get out of your heads. It's not about you. Like, we're trying to make this business better, right? Yeah. Or are we just trying to protect our own egos and how we look to each other? Yes. So I've learned that you just can't go spouting in a channel. You got to like hit people on the side and go, hey, Adam, the email's broken. What are we doing about it? Right. Like, so I've kind of learned through trial and error of just like messing up. But Yeah, those are some issues that I'm still working through, but I'm trying to be better every day for the people. And you know what ends up happening, unfortunately, is I just stop talking. And that's the unfortunate part, because I'm just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and listen to everybody. Maybe I'll say a few words at the end of the meeting, but I just find myself pulling back and saying less, because I don't want to hurt people. I don't want things to be taken wrong. And if you don't say anything, well, then you can't hurt anyone. Right.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm still working through, but it's a big mistake I've made over the years. Just not being a little more buttoned up, which I wish I was, but it's just not me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about that. I mean, that's your definite progression as a leader. I've seen that too. The more followers I get, and I'm very direct. I mean, you know me, I'm very direct as well. And people always take things out of context, always. And I'm like, okay, did you hear the first part of the conversation with that, right? If you take one snip from that. So I get that online. I mean, people in general, unhappy people in general will find anything to point a finger, right?
Yeah.
It's different in the company, right? But yeah, that's the progression as a leader. And sometimes I've learned, I mean, there's a lot that's going on in the world right now, and that sometimes it is better just to keep your mouth shut, because for the reason being is people are not going to see it. They're going to see it from their wounds rather than from the higher expression. And when it's ready to have that conversation, then we have that conversation in a different environment, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a time and a place. There's I definitely speak up about stuff going on in the world. I mean, I've been shadow banned since 2020 for speaking up, but you have to pick and choose, and that's what I've been learning.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, the progression of being a leader, but also being a leader that is aligned with the truth. And so if that's who you are, right, that's who you are. And so then you work, clean up little things. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm very direct as well. So
yeah, gets us into trouble. You know, it's just, it's double-edged sword. Some people love it. Other people, not so much. You know, yeah. It's an acquired taste for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about the charities, because you give back a lot. And I don't know if it was time, goes by quickly. Was it this Christmas or the Christmas before? You were doing a lot of things for teachers. So how has that become a part of the brand's mission and everything?
It's something that I just get so much joy out of. And it's something I grew up with. I think my parents instilled those values in me very early on. I got to see how people respected givers. I would watch my parents give back in the community, and I wouldn't think much of it. And then I would see them out at dinner, and someone would stop by and say, Tom, man, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate what you did for my uncle. And I would see the tears, and I would just see the compassion. And I was like, God, I want to be like that someday. But I was broke my whole life. So what could I give? Right. Like I had no way to be charitable until I made some money. So that's when, the True Classic thing came about. I was like, now is my chance. Now I get to basically take what I learned when I was young from my parents, and I can just push it out into the world, and I can find unique ways to give. So it started out with the tiny house project down in Savannah that my dad retired and became a part of, because they moved down there from Michigan.
Oh, beautiful.
And so that was where it really started. My whole family is veterans and PD. And so it was very near and dear to my heart. And so we helped build a bunch of houses down there. But then what happened was, as the company grew, I noticed there was just a lot more people needing help. And then it became like, I started looking around, and I'm like, it's kind of boring just to donate to random charities. Yeah. I'd rather be like, I want someone to reach out to me that just had their house burned down, and I want to just give them a new wardrobe. That to me is impact when it comes to charity, right? Like anyone can cut a check and get a write-off. But for me, it's like, can I just be the guy that helps people solve problems as it relates to money or charity, and they just come to me, and then I can decide for myself if it's legit or not, and say, yeah, this person really needs help, or like this person just wants me to sponsor their like softball team, right? Like I get both things, but like, so that's where it really evolved from. And so we started taking care of a lot of the homeless here in LA, and there's 60,000 of them. So there's a lot. Yeah. And we did a lot for the homeless veterans in LA as well. We started with that, ended up going broader. Now we're like, anyone who needs help anywhere, especially when like the Maui thing that happened, we sent big packages out there, and basically any natural disaster, I'm always all over, because I know that those people are in need of something, and it may not be t-shirts. They may just say, look, we need underwear and toothpaste. And so I'm like, take 10K off the top and give them $10,000 worth of toothpaste. Cecilia, one of our assistants, like, do whatever they need. I don't care. It doesn't have to be about us. I don't even care if anyone talks about it. This is not for PR. Yeah. This is just to keep showing up for humans one way or the other when they need us on demand. That is the kind of charity I love. And with the teacher thing, you know, Tiffany, one of our internal employees, was just like, we have a charity channel where people throw in their ideas, and they'll be like, this one is great. We got to jump on this. And she was like, you know, I'm noticing that kids are going back to school, and a lot of people on Twitter are talking about this, this Payoff the wish list thing. So I was like, no, let's do it. We do everything, right? Yeah. I didn't think anything of it, right? I was just like, okay, Cece, let's go pay off like 50 of these wish lists. So we did. Then what happened is someone retweeted it, and someone that had a good following. And then the floodgates opened, and overnight it went from 50 to like 2,000. And I was like, this created so much work, and we didn't anticipate it at all. Yeah. But people saw what we were doing, and they latched onto it. And it was kind of like the perfect timing, because the teachers really needed the help, and they were about to go back to school. So it was like a rush. So I spent 3 weeks of my life in September on my phone, Cece on her computer, and just paying and basically closing every Amazon wish list we could. Yeah. And then it started getting picked up by the news media outlets. Mm-hmm. And then it got even bigger. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is literally going to become my full-time job now. It's like, I was devoting so much time to it. But now what I do is I love Twitter, because I think it's the perfect place for philanthropy. And I don't see enough people wielding it that way. But I think it's a great spot. Now what I do is I try to find, like, I've been giving out books lately. I've been looking at the Amazon bestseller list, and like for the month of February, I was looking at things related to relationships, because it's the month where Valentine's Day. And so I was taking like, what are the top self-help relationship books, like the 5 love languages. Anyone who wants this book, add it to your wish list and I'll buy it for you. And so I did that one. I did another one as it relates to emotional intelligence recently. This week, I'm going to do another one. So I think I love the book thing because it makes people better. It teaches a man how to fish, not to eat for a day, right?
I just used that the other day.
It's the best, because what we were starting out doing was like, oh, let's do these gift bags where we like give a candle and a thing. And I was like, that's okay. But like, what the book thing just really hit me. And I realized that it's probably one of the greatest gifts I can give is just to continue to take books that are wildly popular and just and buy them and give them out for free so that people can learn and be better humans. And it's something they can take with them forever, versus like, here's a candle, it's going to burn and die. You're never going to see it again. You know, here's some knowledge, put it up here, put it in your heart, and then hopefully become a better person for it. So I'm doing a lot of that on Twitter still these days. And I just love it. It's so intoxicating to give.
Because we both know, like, I know that you were broke. I was broke.
Yeah.
We worked for this. So we know what it's like to
be on the other side of it.
That aren't ideal.
Absolutely. And I live in that every day. Like, I don't wake up like I am so rich and I'm a CEO. Like, I still feel like the broke kid from the Midwest who was just lucky to make $50 a night playing piano at an Italian restaurant down the street that would feed me food and give me, $25-50 in pay. I feel like that every day of my life still. So I wake up with this sense of like, just sheer happiness that I'm even here still. I mean, I'm lucky to be alive considering everything I've gone through, but the giving is just something that excites me and energizes me because I get to see the feedback from it. And, until you get there and you start giving, you don't understand what it does for yourself. Selfishly, you're giving, but it also feeds your soul. Yeah. Right. It's the way I think we were really built is why it feels so good, because otherwise, like, no one would really give, right? Like, it has to really feel good on both sides to win. It's just magic, man. I love it. I love giving. It's one of the best things I can do with my time.
No, that's so beautiful. Thank you. And I agree. It was interesting over the holidays. I had a moment where I'm like, "Ooh, this is rough." Like, single again. Here we go. And then I was feeling sorry for myself, and then I realized, wait a minute. I have an amazing family. I have amazing friends. I have an amazing business. I'm living my purpose. It's good.
Yeah.
And then I realized, no, I want to give back and help a family that can't put food on the table for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can have a huge get together if I want. And I did stuff like that, right? So I did. I shared, and my friend is owns a nonprofit, and I adopted a family. And what
Wow.
they came to me and they said, or they came to the foundation, and all they wanted was it was the grandmother taking care of the kids, and all they wanted was to give her like give them backpacks for the
Mm-hmm.
holidays. And I was
Yeah.
like, we'll give you a backpack and then some. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So like we took care of that
It's
beyond the
amazing.
backpack, right? And so then they sent me a video of them like with the backpacks, and like it was so beautiful. And now I'm constantly donating to animal shelters here in LA, that it's just like automatic monthly. And
Love
I'm
that.
just sharing that because it feels good, and that's what we're here for. And I keep telling, my audience, when you put money in the hands of conscious people, this is how we change the world.
Yeah. No, it is. And I see it every day with I have these, so my poker playing background, I have
Yeah,
these chips where I give these, they has store credit on it, this little red
yeah,
code.
I
And I
love that
give these
idea.
out. I give the $100 ones. This is a $50 one, but I give the 100 ones out all the time.
I love that.
And it's been life changing.
Yeah,
I did this because I love to give. And I also played poker for a living. So it was just natural for me to create something like this.
smart,
But
very
what I
smart.
didn't anticipate, and I didn't use this as like an acquisition channel, I was just loving the fact that I could give something and people could try the product out. But
Yeah,
what I didn't anticipate was that what would end up happening was I would intersect with this person again later down the line, weeks from now, months from now, and they would see me and they would light up like an
oh,
Uber Eats driver, right? An Uber Eats driver that they generally work in the same areas. So I would give one to someone. I would see them in 2 weeks and they'd be wearing All True Classic
oh,
and they would have a story and they would say, honestly, that was one of the nicest things people have done for me. I don't get gifts, obviously, but like, thank you. Even the
yeah,
FedEx drivers that drop stuff off, I give one to them and they're just
oh,
like, they look at me like, are you kidding me? $100? Like they just,
yeah.
and like I give these out a lot to servers in restaurants.
Mm.
And when I go back to that restaurant, these people treat me like I'm the president of the United States.
Oh.
They see me and they're so thankful and they love it. And I always have another one for them, right? I'm always like, great to see you again. Boom. And they're just like so excited to try more stuff. Even like the valet guys. I mean, it's amazing when you get to re-interact with someone after you give something. You get to see how it actually impacted their life, right? Because a lot of times you give and you never see the fruits of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which I never intended. But
yeah,
like when you do see it, you understand it makes you want to do more because you get to
yes,
see how much it
yeah,
actually meant to that person who gets
yeah.
nothing ever. Now all of a sudden you were one of the people that gave and it changed them and they love you for it. So it has really changed the way I think about giving completely. And I'm obsessed with it. I find a way to give these out at every occasion. And again, it's not a play to like get people to buy True Classic, right? Like it doesn't really net out for that.
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
it does do is create an amazing moment. And I know those guys are going to
Mhm.
talk about that forever. They're going to
Yeah.
tell that story,
It's so
right? So
exciting to win something, to get something. I mean, it changes lives.
and they're just not used to like getting things like
Yeah.
that, right? Like what delivery drivers get presents. It's
Mm.
just, so it's a lot of fun and I get to really see how giving impacts people later in life and I love it. It's really a cool thing.
So that's the side I know about you because I've known you for a while. And I want to end with this. This has been amazing talk. And I know that you're a family man, and I love that about you. And you've always been so devoted, and you have beautiful children and a beautiful
Thank
wife.
you.
How do you find balance with all that? Like, how do you show up as the CEO and show up as the husband and father to your children that are so beautiful?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That I don't know that there ever is the perfect balance. I think that there are moments in life that kind of need to be a little unbalanced to make it work, right? Like when I started True Classic, if I was hell bent on creating work-life balance, True Classic would have never done what it did,
Yeah.
right? Like to me, it's okay to be unbalanced for certain periods in your life, right? Like most of my life, it was unbalanced. And I've just probably in the last 2 years gotten to a place where there is real balance. And now it's the other way. Instead of me killing myself and working all day, every day and neglecting everything, I go the opposite. I show up to work late, meaning I take all my kids to school by myself and just like have that time and moment with them.
Aw.
And then I leave work early because I want to pick them up and I want to have time with them between when they get home at 3:30 and they go to bed at 7. I want to have that window dedicated to them. And I don't want it to be occupied with work because work isn't going anywhere. But these kids, they are, right? They're going to grow up and I'm going to miss all that time. So I'm very mindful that when I'm in the moment at home, I need to be present. I can't be on my phone. I can't be on the computer thinking or taking a call or whatever it is, because, you know, what matters is family at the end of the day. You know, this business is going to live and die on its own after I'm gone. But like for me, these are the impressionable years for my kids where they need me to show up, you know, and growing up in a family, you know, my parents were in they owned a modular home business, which was a rough business, but they were always working. And, you know, they were trying to make a better life for us, right? They were really struggling and the business was a terrible business, put them in debt big time. But what I wish I would have had when I was younger was just more time with them. And they didn't have a lot of time for me. And I spent a lot of time with babysitters because they were both in the business and they had to break their neck to make it work. And I don't hold them against that. And now I'm taking a lot more time with them that I missed out when I was a kid. But having that DNA and living through that, I understand the value of, because like your kids aren't going to tell you, right? You're not going to know till later that they really missed you and that they really wanted you around. And so I know what that feels like. And I didn't tell my parents at the time either. So I'm very cognizant of it. And I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to show up for you guys. And when I'm with you, I'm going to give you my full attention. We're going to go outside. We're going to play. We're going to get on the bikes. We're going to fish. We're going to do whatever we want. But I'm not going to be lost in my phone while I'm with you. I'm going to give you my attention. And someday I won't have it. Someday some other guy is going to have Maddie's attention. And some other girl is going to have Maddox's attention. And then I'm going to see them on Christmas. And that's about it. And I'm going to miss this time. And so I'm just trying to live in the moment. But to answer your question, I don't know that there's ever the perfect answer for work-life balance. I think that it comes in stages. And I think it's okay to just be unbalanced in certain times of your life for the greater good. As long as it's not coming at the expense of the humans around you, I think it's okay to bust your ass in your 20s, right? Like I think you're supposed to, because what you don't want to do is be working till you're 70. You want to bust your ass early and be completely unbalanced so that in your 30s you can get a family and or in your 40s and have everything you want and have time for all those people that you love and cherish. Yeah. So it's a constant evolution. And I see a lot of people struggle with it. And part of it here internally is that, like, I see it in some of our employees, and you know, it's just how they're wired. They're just obsessed with the business. They want to focus on it, and it's just part of their DNA. But I do think for those people, it will evolve as they get a little older, and they will see that there is much more to life than work. And so, you know, work is one thing, but man, when you're old, you're going to need those kids to take care of you on some level. Yeah. So you better treat them right and you better balance it correctly so that they're pushing you around in the wheelchair. They're not pushing you into a nursing home for someone else to push you in a wheelchair, right? Like you really want to be surrounded by family, and you got to have strong bonds early on with those kids and your wife or your counterpart. So it's important.
I love this. I love everything you said. And I can attest, I mean, I've seen you. You are an amazing husband and dad.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's been years, but I've seen you and it's incredible. So thank you so
much. I
much.
appreciate it. Thank you. And again, I'm super proud of everything you have achieved. It's pretty amazing that the two of us were in similar spots at a similar time, and we were all hanging out and we were going out a lot. Remember,
Yeah.
like we would all roll with
Oh,
like, you know, the Michelles and
that's when I
Elise
was
and that whole
drinking. I was like,
crew.
I can't even drink now.
I know,
Yeah.
I don't drink either. Like I
Yeah.
literally, and that's all we did back in our 20s, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's all we did.
we would all go out and we would go to a spot and we would just
It was
party all
fun.
night, and that was our life.
Yeah.
And none of us really had a lot going on, so it was
Yeah.
fine, right? Like
Yeah.
we didn't have businesses, we didn't have anything, but man, your evolution has been really something to see, and I'm just so proud of how far you've come, and it's been pretty amazing. I gotta say, like watching you help people, I just thought was one of the more moving things from your evolution that just really connected with me. And when I would see how people would respond to you in the comments, I'm just like, she's connecting, man. This is what it's all about. And I know we've had a lot of talks about that. And I'm just really proud of your journey. I think you have so much more to give. And it's going to be great just to see where you go with this whole thing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, just to speak last thing, like all our journeys are different. I love what you said about it. Almost had to be unbalanced in the beginning. Again, I don't know your belief system and everything on this, but I know for me, Spirit has made it very clear that I had to go really hard on my business. And I knew later in life it would be my partner and my family.
Yes.
I still know that I'm going to be a mother, and I love that so much. But that was what my journey was. And I had to go hard. I had to do these things so that I can create this container so that I can be in a different place. And I'm just speaking to that, anyone that's listening, to know that we all have different journeys, right? And it's beautiful. And at the end of the day, we're going to have what we want if we stick with it.
100. It really is a consistency thing at the end of the day. Putting your head down, figuring it out, and just staying consistent and curious and moving and making an impact. It's the whole game.
So thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. Thank you for being here, and we will connect offline as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.